What can you say? It's Bob Bonniol. Really cool talk about AI. Finally, someone who really is into it even more than I am, and super smart guy, obviously. Bob has written his own code. He's a very smart computer guy. So fun talk. We got into it pretty heavy here on this episode, which is episode number 276. So I really hope you enjoy it. It was fun, and I look forward to doing it again with Bob because we only got so far into it. So enjoy. Thank you for joining me today for Geezers of Gear episode number 276. Today's podcast is brought to you by Mainlight, a national dry hire rental provider specializing in supplying the latest lighting and stage equipment technology. Their extensive rental inventory includes moving lights, truss solutions, control consoles, LEDs, and an array of weather-resistant IP65 rated fixtures. Perfect for outdoor venues. Whether for theater productions, outdoor stadium events, or TV film broadcasts, Mainlight is the partner you trust with the gear you want, committed to quality and reliability. Mainlight also provides a robust selection of used sales options to their client, with each item meticulously maintained and owned by Mainlight, coming with a 60-day depot warranty. Strategically located across the U.S., their 4 key locations include Teterboro, New Jersey, Wilmington, Delaware, Nashville, Tennessee, and Las Vegas, Nevada. Discover how Mainlight can equip your next event by visiting mainlight.com today. And today's podcast is also brought to you by Elation Professional. Please take a moment and watch this wonderful video.
Inspire your audience's imagination with Elation's Pulse Strobe Series. Designed to bolster creativity and deliver breathtaking kinetic intensity. The Pulse Series empowers designers to create dynamic lighting experiences that captivate any audience. The Pulse Series synthesizes mesmerizing lighting experiences with power and precision, allowing designers to create rhythmic, heart-pounding lighting effects with effortless control. Elation's Pulse Series.
You've probably already seen it, and therefore I'm going to drive you crazy by telling you again that I went to see this week David Gilmour from Pink Floyd fame, of course, and designed by Mark Brickman, of course, who we've had on the podcast recently. I believe it was episode 271, if I remember correctly. And so Mark invited me to see the show, and I was reading about today's guest, Bob Bonniol. Mark invited me to see the show along with John Wiseman from PRG, of course, and hung out with them, spent some great time with them. Also, Jerry Harris from, the founder of PRG, of course, he invited, he was there as well, and I got to spend some time with him, some quality time with Jerry, which is always fun. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this light out of my eyes. There's a LED friggin' video light thing in my eyes, and it's driving me crazy. So anyways, got to spend some time with Jerry, got to see the show, loved the show. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I've posted about it already a whole bunch. And if you want to see some pictures or videos, you can go to, I think, either my Instagram or the Geezers of Gear Instagram. I can't remember which it is, but there's some reels. And, it's just a fabulous show. It's so well designed. It's so unique and different, and I just really enjoyed myself and enjoyed spending time with some great friends as well. And it's always fun to pop into New York for 24 hours as well. So I would say if you get a chance to see it, go see it. But unless you're in New York, you're not going to see it because the tour is very short. It was only 4 cities. It's in the 4th city now, New York. And I believe there are 2 more shows, if I remember correctly, maybe tonight and tomorrow night or tonight and Sunday, something like that. Maybe even just 1 show this weekend. But yeah, what is today? Today is the 8th. So I think there's a show tonight and a show Sunday, and that's it. And then it's over. And so I hate to say it, and I don't want to be the one to say it, but this could be the last chance you get to see David Gilmour or Pink Floyd, or David Gilmour doing Pink Floyd, or any of that. And also, it's really worth seeing this design. So if you're in New York, if you have any ability to get tickets, if you actually, by the time you hear this, it's over. So I apologize. Forget all that stuff. So anyways, it was great. Watch it on YouTube, I guess. So what else do I want to talk about? I'm not going to do a big intro today because we are actually going to talk about AI today. And I've been looking forward to this one because there are a few people in the industry, I think, who are as geeked out as I am on AI. And today's guest is one of them. Bob Bonniol, of course, is an Emmy Award-winning director, production designer, and producer. He's known for his implementation of extensive media and interactive features in his productions and installations. His practice spans the world of theater, broadcast, opera, installations, and architecture. In 2023, he widely deployed new interactive technology and AI to elevate live concert production with designs for Billy Joel, Blake Shelton, Thee Stallion, and the One Night Houston Festival. In the course of his career, he's worked from Broadway to Beijing, helping clients from Disney, NBCU, ABC Live Nation, AEG, Marvel Studios, and Lucasfilms gathers and dazzles audiences of millions. Speaking today is challenging for me. We had the pleasure of having Bob on the podcast in February of 2023. You can check that episode out. It's number 183, and that is available on Spotify, on YouTube, on lots of places, or on our website, geezofgear.com. So please join me and welcome Bob Bonniol again here to episode number 276.
Bob. Marcel.
How are you? What's happening?
I am lovely, man. I'm good. It's a beautiful fall day here in Seattle.
Yeah.
And I've been living in Los Angeles for the last 2+ months, so I just got back home.
Good for
after
you.
my residency in Los Angeles. And
what was that? Or can you talk about it?
Yeah, no, there's a variety of projects that I have going on in LA, but primarily I was there because my daughter was doing 2 months of training at Act Lighting on becoming an MA3 support tech.
Oh, very cool.
So she's a programmer. She's a budding programmer, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And had become quite proficient on ETC consoles through the course of her education.
Yeah.
Which is not surprising. ETC kind of has that marketplace.
They do. Yeah.
Sewn up, but she was quite eager to learn about MA. She's been on site with me a few times, and she's always been particularly blown away with Felix Peralta and his proficiency with MA.
Yeah.
So I reached out to Ben Saltzman at Act Lighting and said, hey, do you guys have any opportunities for training or for that? And he's like, it's funny you mention it. We are actively looking for people to put through this program, to come, sort of serve an internship at Act. And
very cool.
In the course of that, my daughter Izzy, she got to learn about Zac Tracks. She got to go through all of the training on MA3, but then go yet deeper and learn how to debug the new software and learn.
Oh, wow.
So she learned it at a level that's not just a programming level, but at a deep functionality level. So I was primarily there to make sure that my daughter was successful, let's put it this way: any of our listeners who are parents know that sometimes your kids have a variably successful relationship with like living in the world.
Yes. How old is she?
She's 20.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my son's 20, so trust me, I get it. Just
So
keeping him from killing himself by doing something dumb is most of my goal in life.
I worried less about that with Izzy than just her, call me conservative about this, but setting my daughter free in Los Angeles, where she's never been before, was
Yeah.
maybe a little harrowing.
Yeah.
But I also wanted her to be free to really focus on what she was up to.
Yeah.
And of course, I have infinite reasons to be in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Both projects going on, but also developing new stuff too.
I did something similar, and I because again, I guess one of the differences between a young man and a young woman is you're a little less nervous about sending away a young man. And my son went to London by himself for 6 months, and I didn't worry about him at all. I dropped him off with his bags and stuff at an Airbnb and said, "See you later." And that was that, right? And then went over to visit when he was racing or whatever. So, I mean, I get it. But it's really cool that you did that with her and helped to make sure she was successful. And obviously it's nice when you have connections in the industry that you can sort of help some of those things along or at least, So good for you. Good fathering.
Just doing my best. Back when I was a production designer for Nickelback, I remember talking to Chad's mom, the lead singer Chad. I was talking to his mom, and we were talking about being parents, and I have a girl. Obviously, she had a boy, and she said, "Well, I'll tell you, Bob. When you're raising a boy, you only have to worry about one dude. When you're raising a girl, you have to worry about every dude in town."
Yeah. I heard a slightly more colorful version of that same story.
There is it there. I can tell you that is not a quote. It was a slightly different verbiage going on, but I think that gets the point across.
Exactly. No, and I get it. Trust me. But I mean, again, with boys, I think really, again, my son likes to go fast in everything that he does, right? So,
of course he does,
if
right?
he's pushing a shopping cart through the store, he's riding it like a skateboard or a scooter or something as fast as he possibly can and probably racing his buddy or something. And, just bad things tend to happen. It's like, funny story, when I was designing the house that I used to live in pre-divorce, when I was designing the pool on the back of it, I had a guy with CAD and, he's designing here's the waterfall and this is going to be the hot tub over here and here's where we're going to, whatever. And I said, that distance right there between the house and the edge of the pool, how far is that? And he said, it's 8 feet. That's pretty standard. And I said, we've got the room. Can you move that double, like 12 to 16 feet? And he goes, I mean, we can, but won't it look a little strange that far from the house? And then you got to build a bigger screen if you build a screen over it. And I said, yeah, but that upstairs window, that's his bedroom. And I guarantee you...
We're measuring the trajectory of the...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If it's too far, he's not even going to try it, right? But 8 feet, he's going to be jumping. He's going to jump from there to the pool. It's going to happen. So I'd rather not inspire that to happen, right? The minute I leave... But anyway, I appreciate you coming back on again. It's been a year and a half, and lots of things have happened in the last year and a half. Yeah. God forbid. I mean, our industry went batshit crazy, and now it's crazy in a different way. And, I was talking to an account exec from one of the big companies the other day, and he said, I went from the crazy busiest year in my career and biggest, most successful year in my career to like this weird year where it was incredibly busy, but they were all smaller deals. And so I was still just as busy, but I didn't make any money. And, it's just like weird. It's weird. Our industry's weird, but you're staying busy.
It's an up and downs thing. I'm lucky in that I've got professional ADD, and plenty of our colleagues are very focused folks. Like they're They either focus on their concert career, they focus on doing more brand event type stuff, or maybe they focus in architecture. But because I am like, I can't stay focused on much for very long. The net benefit of that is that at Mode we built a business that's about playing in all three sandboxes.
Yeah.
So as businesses seem to have their cyclical ups and downs, usually there's an offset. So
there's overlaps.
We're not having a good concert year, we can focus on the corporate work. If the corporates are pulling back on spending and there's less work there, we can look at architecture or music. And, between the three verticals, we seem to find enough to buy the groceries.
Was that on purpose, or was that just entirely by accident?
If you look back at the history of the company and across my career and Colleen, my wife's career, you might infer that we were very smart about how we did that. But in fact, I'm here to say it was a little bit of a happy accident, And to that end, I tell people just starting out, say yes to everything.
Yeah.
Try everything. Go work in fashion.
Yeah.
And do fashion shows. Go work in business. Go do corporate events. Go do theater, right? Go see what architecture stuff is like. Because I think, so many of the best practitioners at what we do have had that diversity of experience. And I think in the beginning of your career, you are well served to not worry about as much about what pays more or maybe what you think you're interested in, and just to get that diversity of experience. Now, I think as a career proceeds, what you really ought to be doing is saying no a lot more, because then you've determined what your focus should be, and where you are best able to contribute to things.
Well, and so many people don't understand that it's generally harder to say no, especially in business. Like, what business people have the hardest time learning to do is to say no, what to say no to, not what to say yes to. But it's funny, when you talk about the multiple different disciplines and that kind of thing. So I went and saw David Gilmour in New York this week.
So brilliant, isn't that show?
Yeah.
I get to see it at the Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah. Oh, cool. So, but I was going to say that, Mark had taken basically a couple of years, I think 8 or 10 years off of lighting, and became a very good artist. Like he's become an artist.
Yeah.
And so seeing that show, you could see very much art blending with a, classic rock show, and so well. Like, it was such a beautiful show. It was just so unique and so cool. And it had some aspects of some old Pink Floyd shows with the big lasers and stuff. So much fog, more fog than I think I could ever remember anyone using. But just an incredible show. I loved it. This morning, again, I went and looked back at the pictures from the show 2 days ago, and I was just like, wow, what a beautiful show.
I think that Mark is in a really fortunate position there. I mean, it's evident and it's true. I think that David Gilmour regards Mark as a trusted and equal collaborator.
Yeah,
in
artistic
that.
freedom.
There's so few examples of that. I mean, Steve Cohen with Billy Joel, Willie Williams with U2. There are some very rare examples where the artist has not just given permission, but has fully embraced and what is usually a long collaboration with a person in particular. So Mark's got that with David, and Mark, having had his art sabbatical, as you say, he came to this tour, and what I love about Mark is he's so performative, right?
Yeah.
Like he in as much as he is, he's like jamming with the band, right?
Yeah.
There's not a lick of time code going on there.
Well, and I don't know if you heard his podcast, but he talked about that. He said, if I'm going to do this, and if this is going to be my last David Gilmour show, because I don't know, because, David's up there. I think he's turning 80 this year or something.
Yeah.
And he said, so I don't know if this is the last one. If it is, I want to control the lights. I want to actually operate the lights, and I want to make, create art with the lights.
Yeah.
And he did. I mean, he really did. It's such a very, it's not like it's outrageous technology or it's just an outrageous lighting package or anything. It's just really cool use of light. Is and so I like it. I think it's really cool. But it's just interesting that you talk about the different disciplines and saying yes, because I think when you if you grow up a rock and roll designer and you stay a rock and roll designer your entire life, you're kind of boxed in a little bit, right? But when you start pulling in theater or you start pulling in art or you start pulling in different things is when it gets interesting, I think.
Well, and I think that was a differentiator for me in the beginning of my career. I grew up in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
So I was coming up in the scene in Providence. And I was mainly, I was very wishy-washy about what I was studying, either in high school or college. I was kind of half of my time with tech. Like I was working to learn computer programming, which has since informed so much of everything about what I've done, which I think we're going to get to.
Yes.
But then simultaneously, I got a job at Trinity Repertory Company in Providence, which is a very well-regarded regional theater, as a spotlight operator, and then that's where I learned to become an electrician. That's where I met my wife, who took me 12 years to get her to go on a date with me. But, when I met Colleen at Trinity, she had just come off the road with the original Joshua Tree tour. She had been on the lighting crew for U2. She had been out with Springsteen and had worked with Jeff Ravitz for a while. And I thought she was amazing.
Yeah.
But I was there, but that was a theater, and we were doing incredible theater. And it was a very theatrical. I also met Ann Militello there, who came in to design shows. I met a whole bunch of other great LDs, and I got steeped in this theatrical tradition of what lighting looked like.
Right.
Now, at the same time, I'm also working. I found a job at a club in Providence called The Living Room, which was one of the big concert clubs in Providence, where basically for the compensation of as much beer as I could drink, and maybe if I were lucky, I'd get a 20 or, $20 a night, $40 a night. I was running, an old Leprechaun LP 1000 two-scene preset board and 24 park cans, and I was doing bands, and I was learning how to busk.
Yeah.
And I was learning how to be performative with lighting, with music. So I was doing music from the beginning. I was also doing theater from the beginning. And I also stumbled into the local corporate market. All of this as an electrician, but also then very quickly I was bringing the tech stuff that, I had worked out all kinds of, I was fascinated by graphics and computers. So one of the first a thing that I did at the Living Room, for instance, is I went out and I found an old ruined GE light valve, which is an improbably gigantic, incredibly stupid projector to work with, but it had been abandoned as unusable by an AV company in Massachusetts. I went and got this thing, and I would bring it to the living room, and I was literally using like a video toaster or an Amiga computer to do. I'm not going to insult Joshua White by saying I was doing liquid light shows.
Yeah.
But I was doing psychedelic projected texture on these bands by fiddling around with the computer at the same time I was doing the lighting.
That's cool. Huh.
So you could see all the pieces that now I've become known for, even at that point, but I can't tell you that there was a conscious decision.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what I want to be and what I want to do. I want to combine all these things. And I was just a 21-year-old kid, saying, man, my beer money jobs sure are cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's, those lucky accidents and things that happen that you just go, hey, this actually turned out really well. A lot of those things like Verilight, I remember the story that I heard on my podcast where, the light wasn't supposed to be on while it moved. That was just
right. And then,
to reposition the fixture.
Yeah,
the shutter was supposed to be closed in the middle, and there was
they
a
forgot to
glitch where it
black them
stayed
out
open.
and it moved, and everyone lost their minds.
Right.
Yeah.
And went, whoa,
Yeah.
do that again, and suddenly, the look that became so famous happened. So I like that kind of stuff when that happens.
I adore that anecdote.
Yeah.
I think that's
Sometimes
great.
mistakes are the best part of the show. But, the cool thing, one of the cool things, not to go on and on about this Brickman show, but one of the cool things about it is I've seen the same song multiple times on video and stuff from this show, and every time it looks completely different because he's performing it,
Yeah, among the things he's doing, he's got that Corel Paint thing, which is feeding the VPU on the MA, which is letting him literally be rhythmic, and motion based and emotional based in the way he's running the lighting and pieces of the show. Yeah, and I just think it's phenomenal. I've
like
heard
busking
so
on
many
acid
people talking about that show and how different it is from anything else. And that's Mark. Mark thinks without constraints.
Yeah.
He doesn't worry if something doesn't exist or if a workflow hasn't been determined. He's gonna get it figured out, and he's gonna put it to work, and he's gonna put his fingerprints on it. You see that show and you can't.
Well, the very first time I ever met Mark, it's a story I've never shared, but I was with Martin, and we were creating our largest, most expensive booth and trade show at LDI ever, which was in Miami Beach. Mm-hmm. And we hired Mark Brickman to design the show on our booth. And so Brickman took him forever to come up with the design, and I'm not mad at him for this. This is just how he operates. We put walls around him, and you can't do that with Mark. And so he came to us with a design that had like $500,000 in video on it. And our whole budget, including the party, was like $500,000, right? And so we were like, Mark, this ain't going to work. And he went, wow, I can't do it then. You people are too small thinking. And so, in a panic, I called Peter Morse and said, Peter, you were really our first choice. Can you come do this with us, And Peter did an incredible job. And I don't know if you were there in 1994 or whatever with the bicycles.
There, yes. It was one of my, it wasn't the first, I think it was my second LDI I had ever been.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was like legendary. The show that Peter did and how hard it was for us to pull it off with pals that were like overheating and just things failing left and right, because it was a hot box of a room there, with no ventilation and stuff. But it worked out really, really cool. But that was my first experience with Mark. And what I learned was Mark needs to be with bands the size of Pink Floyd. Like, you can't. But then the next thing I saw him do was Matchbox 20 with those incredible, with the motors and the rig moving so quickly and stuff. It was just incredible. I was like, wow. And he was the first guy that I saw do that. So it was just so cool. But anyways, moving on. So one of the reasons I wanted you to do this, and I'm glad you finally agreed to it, is because when I think of who the two probably geekiest AI talking guys are in the industry, it's me and you. And I'm not much of a geeky guy because I'm not that smart, but I do love AI and I do love talking about it. And I've certainly tried a lot of AI stuff and have experimented an awful lot. And I actually want to share something with you real quick before I forget. Hang on one sec. Let me figure out how to do this. This is only going to take me 1 second. Here we go. To share audio, share a tab instead. Well, how do I do that? Oh, it's not going to let me share audio. You suck. Hang on a second. Let me figure this out. Oh. Yeah, I don't think it's going to let me share audio. This ain't fun. Well, I'm going to do it without sharing audio. That's what I'm going to do.
All right, well, I'll use my mind's ear, as it were.
Well, it's your basic.
I've seen some wild stuff.
Oh, it's no good without the audio.
It's like you know, a
I
magician
can kind of
with
hear the
lighting
audio.
and new AI tech too. He's been crushing it in 2023, using
How
all
low do
the
you go?
crazy interactive tech and AI to make live concerts absolutely mind-blowing. We're talking Billy Joel, Blake Shelton, Megan Thee Stallion. Bob's been behind the scenes making their shows pop. And get this, he even rocked the One Night Houston Festival. It's insane how he takes all these high-tech gadgets and turns concerts into these, immersive experiences.
Dude kind of looks like
Check out what Bob's been up to and learn a ton about AI as well on Geezers of Gear, episode number 276.
So that was created on an AI video app called InVideo in about 5 minutes, and
Yeah.
all I did was I took your bio and copied and pasted it into the script for the video.
Yeah.
And so do you use InVideo at all?
No, I don't use
Okay.
video at all. I use a little bit of a different tool set for the
Yeah,
video
yeah, yeah.
stuff that I do, but
Yeah, well, InVideo, if you're looking to do a quick little marketing video or something like that, it's just really super easy to use. And, again, you can just paste a document into it and it'll look through the document and create a video based on but what it used to do is it used to just use stock video and stock images and stuff. So it was okay. You could do a kind of a cool video, but it was just like guys shaking hands and like just boring stuff. Now you can say, okay, like that one I said I wanted animated, it's about this Geezers of Gear episode number 276, and then I put your bio in there, and it came up with that in 3 or 4 minutes probably. So you can do generative video now, and you can do it animated, you can do it lifelike, you can do it in all kinds of different ways. It can be fun, it can be serious, it can be, So it's actually a tool that I use quite often just for creating little market blurbs and things like that. But yeah.
I liked it. It was good.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was just something funny that I thought I'd show you just using one of the apps. So, I want to talk about some of the things I use on a daily basis, which will be totally different than some of the things you use, of course, because you're using them to generate probably content and to generate, So give me some examples of ways that you've managed to incorporate AI into your workflow.
Well, there's a few different ways, and there's a few different. Of course, when we say AI, that's a broad topic, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for the record, I attended a computer camp when I was a teenager, at MIT.
Yeah.
And I remember that when we went there, it was very cool, but they said, okay, what we're going to do is by the end of the camp, you're all going to have written a computer program. And out of the 100 kids there, 99 were like, I want to write a computer game.
Oh, okay.
Which is predictable and cool,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
For the time, this is like 1983, maybe, or something like that. I was
really
in
early.
high school at the time.
Yeah.
I did this, and but what I wanted to do was I wanted to write a program that would teach the computer to talk to me. And not necessarily verbalize, but I wanted to be able to type, "Hi, how are you?" and have the computer go, "Oh, I'm having a good day," or whatever. Like I wanted to be able to have a free-form conversation with the computer. Which the instructors were both, they were like, "Oh, wow, that's cool," and they were also like, "You're really screwing up our lesson plan here because you're supposed to want to make a computer game, right?"
Yeah.
But but what I did was at that time in the course of that camp, which was a month-long thing that I did at I think it was a freshman in high school or something, was I wrote a piece of code that was effectively a chatbot.
Okay. Wow.
It was a very limited chatbot because at the time all you could do was maybe guess at what people would say to this thing, and then you could come up with a range of things it could say in response. So you could only have a very rudimentary discussion with this thing, and it only had so many options as to how it could reply. But so now we look at modern day large language models. So ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude, Google's Gemini. These are the offspring of that chatbot thinking that goes all the way back to that. So I had been noodling with this early on, and even if we go back to 2010 when we put our interactive screens in Microsoft headquarters in studios A through D, we were using machine learning to allow the screens to be different every day and to how they responded to. These were screens that you could gesturally play with if you were in the right spots in the lobby, and you could play with them through your voice. And we came up with, machine learning things that allowed the code to put together different graphic looks on the spot. And this is 2010.
Wow. Yeah,
right?
that was very early.
And it's been a hallmark of a lot of the work we've done, especially on the permanent installation side, of creating what we dream to be semi-autonomous art pieces. Art pieces that would think for themselves or do things because of environmental
that's interesting.
input factors.
Yeah.
What the weather was, what the traffic's like around the building, how many people are moving through a lobby, and then suddenly this LED sculpture was behaving differently, showing different colors, doing different patterns. We repeated that in an installation at a Salesforce building up here. We repeated it in a bunch of different installations. And then in 2018, when we designed GM World, which is a visitor center in the lobby of General Motors global headquarters, where we had 17 moving LED screens, we came up with a thing called the Interactive Content Engine, which would basically give an input from the GM people, but also environmental input and computer vision input. It would put together new pieces of content every day for those screens. And that came from the chief marketing officer for GM, Tim Mahoney, saying, Bobby, how can we make sure that people's experience of this area is different this Tuesday at 9 a.m. from next Tuesday at 9 a.m.? I don't have a budget to pay an agency to be constantly making new content.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I think we have an answer. And that was because we had been doing all of this work. So we built the Interactive Content Engine, which does this. It comes up with basically GM is making new content every day, like terabytes of it. So we were having all of that go into a bucket, and we had one machine learning piece of code that would look at every piece of content that GM contributed. So an ad for an ad for a Chevy Silverado, training video, marketing videos, etc. It would go through all of these videos, and it would look at the videos, and it would tag those videos. So it would put meta tags on it that say this piece of content features a Chevy Silverado, and I can see that it has this trim package, and I can see that the truck is on a beach, and there appears to be a family around it of a mother and a dad and some kids. And so it would then add all this metadata to those clips, so that all of the media going into the bucket now had a way to identify, through metadata what it was. Then we built a different machine learning program, and this was the Interactive Content Engine, which on a given day, let's say it's February, it's truck month, the Chinese manufacturing representatives from the factory that GM has in Shanghai are visiting. And there's more traffic around the Renaissance Center than usual. The Interactive Content Engine would know all of these things. It would know the stuff about who was visiting because GM would tell it.
Mm-hmm.
But it would know what the weather was. It would know what the traffic was. It would know things like it's truck month. And then it would go into the media buckets and say, oh, I've got a clip of a Chevy Silverado. Oh, it's on a beach. That's good because it's cold outside. So we want to put nice warm images up on the screen. And I can also use it because the Silverado's drivetrains are manufactured in, and I'm making this up, by the way. This is not. I don't, don't
Not
go
actual
up on
content.
GM because
Right,
they're
right.
making engines in
Yeah,
China.
yeah.
They probably aren't, but
Yeah.
it would know, oh, these pieces of that truck are made in the Chinese plant. So the Chinese contingent's going to be happy to see that. And then it would put together a whole content sequence based around that. And it does that. And as the more it does it, the more it can build its model out and it gets better. So
it was learning.
So we were doing that in 2018, which is, relatively speaking, like centuries before we were all talking about what we're talking about now. So this isn't something that we've come lately to. It's kind of been something we've been doing from the beginning. Now, with the new tools that have come out with the chat, on the large language model side, just to give you an example, like we use ChatGPT affords you the opportunity to create custom GPTs, they call it.
Mm-hmm.
Some other people call these agents, right?
Yeah.
Which is basically you can train a version of the model to become specifically knowledgeable about something you would like it to be specifically knowledgeable about by feeding it a lot of information, which it then adds to what OpenAI has already trained it on and gives it better context. So we, for instance, at Mode, we've been working to train a custom GPT into being an experiential strategist, right? So it helps us with our corporate work. Like we can, we feed it all the news about brand activations and what the big agencies are up to and what cool new installations were at South by Southwest this year and what popular installations out there and the news around them and data around it and stuff. We've been working to build this custom GPT, which has now become quite an expert at, so now I can come up to it and say, hey, I'm going to do a big engagement for a tech company. What would be a great interactive, immersive, temporary engagement to show clients or to show guests the power of using a particular software suite to get this done in their lives.
Yeah.
And this custom GPT will then think about it and it'll go into all the training we've given it and it'll say, here's some great ideas. You should set up, the high-tech teepee on the ground and you should put these installations in it and these engagement points in it. And here's the strategic reasons why that is good. Here's stuff I know from metrics on other activations corporations have done that have been successful or not, and why this might be a good idea to do it. So in one way, we're using artificial intelligence in our work as a creative agency to help us with coming up with new ideas and strategy stuff, in particular in that corporate activation market. So that's one way we're using AI.
Well, back up 1 second. So, I know what a custom GPT is. I know how a custom GPT comes about, but can you explain, just a very simple custom GPT that somebody might build to do something and what that would entail?
Definitely. So, let's say that you run a major lighting distributing company or distributorship. Let's say you're Ben Saltzman at Act Lighting, or let's say you're Colin Waters at TMB or something like that.
Yep.
And you've got a lot of people on your staff, right? You're managing a lot of employees, but you're from show business, right? You're not necessarily the best HR guy, right?
Yeah.
But you've got employees who want to know, is it appropriate for me to tell my coworker at work, wow, those jeans make your butt look good today, or, whatever, right? Or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You could, for instance...
Because I could totally see Ben saying that.
Yeah, well, no, I could not see Ben.
Exactly.
But I could see other people maybe.
Of course. I think I might have said that in my career 100 times or so. I've been around a while.
To not be controversial about it, let's say that you are running a company and you want your employees to be able to find out, can I take a personal day? Or what are the rules about if I'm late to work, right? And you don't want them to have to go find an employee manual that you gave them when they got hired, that they probably stuck in a drawer, and they don't know. So for instance, you could take your employee manual and you could take your HR guidelines and you could train a custom GPT on that and make that into a chatbot that exists on your company's intranet.
Yeah,
So
that's a great
I want to
application.
know, hey, what is my company's policy on PTO? And they can engage with the chatbot and say, how many days off have I allowed in a given year and what for? And
Yeah.
now that custom GPT is like your ultimate unbiased HR representative,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Who your employees have 24-hour immediate access to.
Yep.
That's a good example of
It is. Yeah, that's a
something to do.
great, rather low tech example of why and how you would create a custom GPT. So thanks for going through that one. So where were you going next? You were on to something when I stopped you.
So that's one kind of AI, which are these kind of very intelligent chatbots.
Yeah.
The other kind of AI I think that a lot of people are seeing and talking about is the generative art AIs. So things that create either pictures like Dolly or Midjourney or programs like that, and now also the ones that create video.
Yeah.
So like Runway's Gen 3, the one that you mentioned that you just used.
Yeah.
There's a spectrum of these apps as well. And what these are diffusion-based transformer apps. And I don't want to make people's eyes roll into the back of their heads.
Right.
But basically what these apps do is they've been trained on, that is to say they have been exposed to a vast volume of visual information, pictures, videos, etc.
Yep.
And then what they do, and I want to be careful because I want to make sure that people really understand this. They don't absorb all that and it sits in a database. And I think this is a misapprehension people have, that like they then go into Midjourney and they say, give me a picture, of a lady walking down the street in the style, as if it were a painting made by Monet. Right?
Yeah.
Those programs then don't go look at that moment at Monet's art, and they don't then like sample that and paste together a collage of existing stuff. Here's what happens, and it's much in the same way like people who go to art school. The programs are trained on the materials, so the materials end up resulting in a database that contains no pictorial imagery whatsoever. It is literally a four-dimensional. Hang on here. It is a four-dimensional mathematical space that basically has a bunch of data about composition, line weight, color, aesthetics, styles. There's no pictures in it whatsoever. If you were to look at it, if you could look at it, because looking at a latent space database has problems of its own, it would look like a massive table of numbers.
Yeah.
So basically, when you enter a prompt into a program like Midjourney, which is a very popular image generator, it looks at what you've written, right?
Yeah.
I want a picture of a blue painted picture of a crazy purple haired, entertainment designer, sitting in a room full of clouds, right? It turns that verbiage into tokens, right? It translates what you've written into tokens. Now, each of those tokens it relates to a specific thing, a color, a descriptive term, male, female, et cetera, et cetera. And then the program takes those tokens, which basically give it numbers, data points. It goes off into its latent space database, which has been generated from the training, and it matches the tokens to areas of the numerical matrix.
Yeah.
And so it understands that bananas are yellow, and it understands that clouds are puffy and white, and it understands that, hair looks like this, and et cetera, et cetera. And it goes into that space. And then the app begins with noise, right? It begins with literally what you might call static if you were looking at it.
Yeah.
And then it sharpens it and sharpens it and sharpens it until an image begins to appear based off the tokens and based off the data it's gotten from its latent space database. Now, the best ones, the best versions of these programs are actually two AIs. One AI is doing this work. The other AI is sitting there serving as a real-time critic and going, that's not a banana.
Yeah.
I don't know about that, right? And basically, one AI is helping the other AI to tune its results. And that fuzzy, static picture gets clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer until it matches the verbal request, the typed request you give it.
Yeah.
So it is not sampling. It is not copying. It is not directly going out, scraping the internet and putting a picture together. It has learned about, a Monet painting. Monet paintings are soft. They're impressionistic. They're painterly. They usually have a more pastel palette, right? And so now the computer program knows what pastel means.
Yeah.
It knows what warm means. It knows what soft and painterly means, and instead of sharp and graphic, right? And so when you prompt it to give you something like that, it doesn't go find a Monet painting and bend it and twist it into something you want.
Yeah.
It makes
That's
whole
such a great
new,
point.
completely custom picture
Yeah.
that references the aesthetic, the composition, the style. It's just like me going to art school, which I did. I attended RISD for a while, Rhode Island School of Design. When I went to RISD, I showed up, and the first thing they did was teach us art history. And we learned about the great masters, and we looked at their work, and we went into the museum, and they would make us try to recreate their work, right? They would, and at the same time, they're teaching us techniques. They would teach us the techniques of these artists so that we could do things like what they did, having looked at what they've done before and been inspired by that. And then go out, and then they taught us how to synthesize all these things together to come up with our own individual style. So the way
Bob,
that these apps work is a lot like that. They get exposed to things, they get taught why those things happened and how they work, and then they get taught on how to create things like it.
Well, it's such an amazing point, because this is one of the greatest fears, it is just the fact that it's going to, copy music. It's going to take people's likelihood and do things to it. It's going to do this. It's going to, all of this copy replica stuff is such a big concern, but it's no different than, with music, there's only so many notes in music. And so, yes, there's a good chance the song's going to have an A in it, and it might have a G or a B minor or something, right? But that doesn't mean you're copying another song that's got a B minor and an A in it. It's and no different than lighting design. You're going to use a similar color of red. You're going to use a similar color of blue, perhaps. Doesn't mean you copied, John Featherstone or Cosmo Wilson or Mark Brickman. It just means that you're doing a design. And when you do that design, you're taking all those experiences, all the other things you've seen and learned over the years, and, you're fitting them together in a way that matches this particular performance, right? And so I think AI does a lot of that as well. And the way you just explained it is incredible. Like, I don't know that I've seen 1,000 YouTube videos, and I don't think I've seen anybody explain it quite as well as you did just now, especially the two AIs, when you're saying one is basically creating it and one is critiquing it. So how do things like 3 arms or 3 eyeballs happen then? What is that?
AI doesn't understand context, right? Like it doesn't. It can tell you that it has a general sense of what a hand looks like. It's a big blob with some sticks coming off of it, kind of like it knows from a compositional standpoint, what a hand looks like, it doesn't understand because no one, it's not, the AIs aren't trained with context. And this is why there's always going to be a place for artists in this, because artists and creatives, I mean, part of what makes me, anyway, creative is that I have, a ton of books behind me, right? If you could see the office around me,
Yeah.
it's all books,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of what I bring to my creativity is context.
Yeah.
And the AIs don't understand context. So yes, it's true. Like the classic thing of like, you can tell an AI image because everybody's got 7 fingers or,
Yeah.
they got the wrong number of fingers and toes. The AIs they understand that they're gonna sharpen a diffuse thing into a picture of something that it's been told is the shape of a human. But the AIs, these creative AIs haven't been trained deeply in human anatomy.
Yeah.
They don't know. So there's like so much that they don't know about yet. And I say yet quite on purpose because, every time they refine these models and train these models, for instance, the whole phenomenon of too many fingers on hands has been reduced and reduced and reduced, has got much.
Yeah.
Because it became something that people noticed. And so the people training the models were like, oh, I can fix that.
Yeah.
Now, and that's the thing. You can, just like I talked about training the large language model to become an expert in experiential strategy, you can train a graphics model to get much better at a specific thing you want it to be much better at. For instance, when we did Blake Shelton and Blake, the Back to the Honky Tonk tour, we wanted to build a big virtual piece of scenery in the video that was kind of supposed to be like Blake's barn on his property that was a honky tonk. And that one of the things in there would be all of these honky tonk posters of Blake, right? Like Blake plays, the Riverfront Bar and Grill, and Blake plays this and Blake plays that. Well, an AI doesn't really know what Blake looks like. Like it probably has seen Blake a few times in the materials it's been given, but you're going to get hit or miss results out of it for sure, right? So one thing we did was we used a technique called LoRa, L-O-R-A, which is a way to give a generative image AI the ability to gain extra knowledge about a specific way something looks or feels. We trained a version of Stable Diffusion, which is a different generative AI art thing, to be an expert at making pictures of Blake.
Oh, right? Interesting.
We edit all of these pictures of Blake from his younger days to his older days in all kinds of different, like we had access to all the photographs that had ever been, that Blake's people had. And we trained this AI to be really good at making images of Blake. It was already pretty good at making images of stuff that would look like honky-tonk posters. So now we could prompt it, make a series of honky-tonk concert show advertisement posters featuring Blake Shelton. And it made hundreds of them for us to choose from.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was awesome. A way that we trained Stable Diffusion to get better at that. But
don't a lot of these like things like DALL-E and different image generation models or video generation models, aren't they really afraid of like the sort of anti-plagiarism and so aren't they avoiding that? Like, aren't they purposely not allowing you to say, give me a picture of Taylor Swift with a mustache or whatever?
100%. And I think that's probably it's judicious of them to do that.
Of course, yeah.
Being accessible to a larger public, there are risks of misinformation.
Yeah.
And the kind of the bad things that can happen if
deepfakes
and
like
that. Which is why we trained Stable Diffusion as an open source model. That is not, I have that model here in the studio on our own computers. It's not accessible to the public.
Oh, okay.
We train this model on Blake. It's not out in the world. You
I see.
can't go to Stable. You can't download Stable Diffusion now. And it's, and we've made it an expert on Blake. We've made our own version in our server closet very good at making Blake pictures.
Oh,
but
that's
we
cool.
haven't released that out into the universe.
So you could do Blake Shelton songs, deep fakes from your computers.
Yeah, we can, and intentionally. Like, we've been granted the permission by Blake to do that.
Yeah.
And now we've created something that is, like with anything, it is, for us, it's a highly, that's a piece of proprietary technology we have. And our agreements with Blake Shelton and with Blake Shelton's management is that's not publicly accessible in any way.
Yeah, of course.
And that, in fact, they own, that
all the image rights and everything.
That version of it. So yeah, if you ask, for instance, Midjourney to give you a picture of someone famous, they've trained it to.
Yeah, trust me, I've tried.
Same is true of Dolly. Same is true of many. They've set up guardrails to make sure that can't happen.
Yeah.
But if you have to know how to code, you have to know how to, it's not easy to grab one of these open source AIs like Flux or Stable Diffusion and just use it. Like, I have computer programming experience. So for me, and even though I had to puzzle out a bunch of stuff, and you have to know Python, and you have to, it's not.
Yeah, Midjourney and ChatGPT and all of these are end user types of programs that a knucklehead like me can go on to and, figure out how to do some prompt engineering and get some results out of it, get some pretty good results out of it, which I have. But no, I mean, I've tried all of those things that you're talking about, like getting images of specific people, specific places, specific whatever, and it doesn't do so well at most of those things. So
no, and
music blows my mind, though. The music ones blow my mind. Like, I've written some really good songs on AI and just gone, whoa, this is nuts. Yeah,
and now there are guardrails showing up on that because, of course, the record labels and the people that control the rights to music are legally well equipped, as we know. And they've and so now you can't. It used to be that there were some of these music AIs you could go and you could say, I want a song of like Kendrick Lamar singing, this song by the Beatles, right?
Yeah.
And it would do it, and it would blow your mind. It would be like, I never thought of the, and I think it's really cool, but the industry clamped down on it immediately. And the reason is because they don't want the public doing this. And I think there are still a bunch of great tools out there that if you are musically inclined or a musician, you can still use these AI tools to create music, and it's super cool. But you can't do that thing.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you who can is the labels themselves. The reason, the reason is that the record labels, and the same goes for any of the major media companies on the planet, they're going to be, and some of them already very much are, they are training their own versions of these AIs so that they can have the ability.
So they can sign an artist to 4 albums and do 12.
Yeah.
I mean, they own the likeness of the artist or whatever. And yeah, I mean, that's scary. That's definitely some scary stuff right there.
It is scary, but I think there were a lot of things that a lot of people were scared of. The big, overwhelming, overarching, scary thing that a lot of people thought about was like, are we headed into Terminator times?
Yeah.
Is there going to be an artificial general intelligence that basically decides that humans are optional and probably should be eliminated? We're not close to that. I'm here to tell you, really smart-sounding chat bots are nowhere near being an artificial general intelligence, right? It's a whole different. I know from programming.
But did you hear Ray Kurzweil's? I think where was he? Was it on Joe Rogan, or maybe it was? I can't remember which podcast it was on, but He says 2029.
I don't think it's quite that close. I think, look, the kind of code that results in an AGI depends on a very different structure.
Yeah.
You know, and a chat bot is basically what it's really good at is guessing the next word that you want.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's when you get right down to the root of what it's doing. That's what
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
right. You have to build a very different code base to be just good at everything.
Yeah.
Right. It's a real neural network.
Yeah.
Right. The large language models they are neural networks, but they're a different kind of neural network. I think we are going to see AGI.
Yeah.
I think you and I might see it in our lifetime, like maybe somewhere
I
in
think
the
we definitely will.
2030s,
Yeah.
probably.
I don't think it's
But
that far off. I mean, when
I-
you look at how fast things have happened over the last, 18 months or something, we've gone from pretty much no one knowing, not no one, but the normal human walking the street knowing nothing about AI to now they've got it on their iPhone or Google phone or whatever, right? And I think things are going to continue moving very fast. I think the low-hanging fruit was some of the stuff we've been seeing, the translator models and the web coding models and the personal assistant types of models and things like that. Writing is obviously gotten pretty good already.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that I don't think that we need to talk about politics or anything, but I can tell you that the incoming administration has a very sympathetic viewpoint in terms of deregulating AI and allowing the tech companies to go as fast as they want in the directions they want to go.
Yeah, I mean, which
is fine. I don't have a I don't have a horse in that race. I think
but the funny thing is, Bob, Elon is very much the opposite of that. So I would think Elon in other people's ears is going to be, because Elon is very I wouldn't say afraid, but nervous of where things are going and how quickly they're going.
Is, Marcel, Elon says that.
Yeah, that's true.
But then he spins up Grok,
Yeah.
which is an open source large language model,
Yeah.
and freely distributed it to the world. The
Yeah.
Chinese now have Grok.
Yeah.
And what they're going to do with it may or may not align with whatever sympathies Elon has. So
Yeah,
Elon is saying one thing, but at the same time, he's building the world's biggest training data centers that exist.
Yeah.
And he's freely distributing the result.
Well, he also says that by the end of the year, he's going to have GPT-4 4.0 power. December, I think, is when he announces Grok 3, I believe it is.
And we'll see. Like he's definitely made huge strides. What I can tell you is that training a big, large language model like GPT-4 is hugely expensive in terms of time and resources, but also it's not like Elon believes in this very this work philosophy of intensity, and that there are things in his companies that I admire a great deal. Like I am a huge fan of SpaceX.
Yeah.
And I think that because SpaceX is vertically integrated, and I think because of Elon's philosophy of how to tackle engineering, it has afforded them this huge advantage.
Yeah.
But it's one thing, but I also know this about Elon. He says things like are going to be something by something.
Oh, yeah.
And then
that never happens. Yeah, that never happens.
Yeah.
I have a friend who has a deposit on the whatever the sports car is called.
Yeah, exactly.
The Roadster, I think it's called, or whatever. But I have a friend who's had a deposit on that for like 3 years and is like, are we ever going to see this car, Elon?
See, and look, we'll see about what he has by December in terms of Grok.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I want to circle back to that fear factor. I mean, artificial general intelligence is one thing. I don't think that's what we need to be worrying about immediately right now. But another thing that people worry about is that AI is going to put people out of work. Now, look, AI is going to change the nature of the workforce, and there already has been huge impacts in journalism in particular. If you're a professional writer, Like there used to be a decent living to be made, for instance, in aggregating news about a special topic. Like let's say you were a tech journalist
Yeah.
and you write reviews about tech stuff, like, like phones or like gaming consoles or
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Forget it.
That job's gone.
Yeah,
that job
you're out.
is gone.
Yeah.
There are AIs who are just they can look at everything on the web instantly. They can summarize it and repackage it. So
Have you used Notebook LM yet?
Notebook LM. Yeah, I've tried. Yeah, I've worked with Notebook with Google's
Friggin-
Notebook LM. It's pretty freakish and cool.
I
And I
love
think like
it.
paralegals.
I love it.
Here's
Yeah.
another, and the job of the paralegal is to go in the most part, or a big part of that job was go find existing information, find the important parts of it that relate to this particular case, summarize it, organize it, put it together, give it to the lawyer. That job's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Well, even
Now,
some low-end
creative
lawyers, some lawyers who do like contract law or, very basic, like, I mean, if you got to do a lease for an apartment that you're trying to rent out, are you going to go to a lawyer or are you going to go to ChatGPT? I mean, it's so easy to get those documents done now.
100%. Like, and then this goes like, for instance, we do a lot of work with big corporations, right?
Yeah.
Like we work with GM.
Yeah.
To work with GM, you have to jump through a lot of hoops. You have to have compliance documentation. You have to have all kinds of documentation for yourself as a company. Your emergency response documentation.
Right.
Because, for instance, GM wants to know that if there is a hurricane or where I am, an earthquake, what are our emergency response procedures to make sure that we're still going to be able to do business the next day to
Interesting.
service our GM account, right?
Yeah.
So, for instance, there's a lot of documentation you have to write as a company if you're doing business with people like this.
Mhm. Yeah.
That kind of stuff, like we've been able to use ChatGPT to do emergency response plans,
Yeah,
compliance plans, computer security plans,
Yeah, me too. That simplifies so much of my day.
But
so
there's,
much.
I think there's also been a big within the art community and the arts community, there's been this backlash of like, this is going to put artists out of work. I don't agree. It's another tool. It's another thing we can use. The effects industry did not put regular movie making people out of work. It just became part of the workflow.
I want to give the flip side of that because, like, what about like Tyler Perry, who canceled, what was it, an 800,000 square foot studio or something that was being built? And, because he just said, we're not going to need studios anymore. We're just not going to need them.
I think the Tyler Perry personal opinion, I think that was calculated much more off of
that was an excuse.
all of the big networks and film studios and most importantly streamers stopped buying content.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're writing content down because they're trying to drive share price up by reducing debt. Here's the fact of the matter is there's a huge fall off in production of television and film right now, and none of it's got anything to do with AI.
Yeah.
It's got to do with media companies trying to figure out how to monetize their content in the age of streaming.
Well,
And
I think consumption
Tyler
has
Perry
changed.
wasn't about to build $1 billion film studio to sit empty,
Yeah.
not because AI had replaced it, but because there's no market for that shit.
Well, would you know Glenn Rogaman from AED in Belgium?
No.
He'd kill me for saying Netherlands. Because he has a lighting, sound, all kinds of companies, but he's got a studio as well. And I talked to him about this, and I said, does that make you nervous at all? And he said, not really. We're going to stay busy. But the problem is, here's what he says. Like, I know I paid a lot of attention to Sora. I haven't followed some of the newer ones that have come out, but Sora was doing some incredible stuff, like really incredible stuff. And but he said, here's what's going to happen. Movies are going to get to here. They're going to get really good. But he said, then what's going to happen is all of this content is going to be right here. It's all going to be really good. And so really good is going to become vanilla, and everything will become sort of ubiquitous and boring. And he just thinks that, the nuances and the good and bad combined together is what makes, film discovery or movie discovery, show discovery so good. It's not like everything is an A. Well, what about some A pluses and some B minuses and whatever? You need some of that stuff, right? But
Well, I'm of various opinions about that. I think that misunderstands and maybe skips over the idea that the AIs are going to get better.
yeah,
Right? Like they're going to feed context into these AIs. The AIs are going, like the generative AIs are going to be taught that everything being perfect leads to homogenization.
right.
And so
That's
they will
true
introduce
too. Yeah.
little human
Good point. Yeah. Yeah.
just to appeal to us. So they also haven't yet even begun to train these AIs to produce stuff that is targeted to demographics, psychographics, and audience segmentation,
That's
right?
such a good point. Yeah.
And they're going to get really good at it. And in the culture has become short attention span theater. I know that my daughter, she does most of her media consumption not in a movie theater, definitely.
Yeah. My son too.
And only barely in any long form anything she sees on TV.
Yeah.
She mainly looks at TikTok, Instagram stories, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, or maybe like half-hour episodic stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I agree.
mean, look,
I agree.
I just want to say the AIs, yes, what your friend said, I think that there's some value in it, but I think it skips by the idea that they're going to teach the AIs to get better at not being
right. That's
better.
True. Yeah, that's true.
All the time,
we
right?
didn't discuss that.
And then the other part, this is kind of a three-pronged thing. The other part of it is I once had an executive producer told me, and this is a guy who's made billions of dollars off audiences. He said, Bobby, never underestimate the appetites of the general public, which is to say, they don't really care. Most of mainstream culture, they don't give a shit about quality.
Yeah.
They look at video in bad MPEG-4 on their phone all day in little bits and pieces, and they aren't necessarily captivated or captured in a conscious way by art.
So true.
So I heard Justine Bateman, who is the president of Screen Actors Guild, she said, I think it was in a Variety article this week, that there was going to be a mass cultural backlash against AI-produced content because people would get tired of it not being great or being just vanilla.
Yeah.
They're not.
No.
They're
hell
not.
No.
I think a lot of the audience is perfectly happy with vanilla. And
Yeah.
I am not. I am an artist. I want people to be inspired and to feel deeper feelings and to go deeper with things.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the mainstream culture, they just want to hit a dopamine when they want to hit a dopamine.
So true. Yeah.
And they don't get attached. They don't think to the extent of like, wait a minute, this all looks a little bit just too homogeneously AI. I don't want to watch anything made by AI.
Yeah, I saw one of those things today. I saw a video that had a Notebook LM. You know how you can do the podcast thing with Notebook LM?
Yeah, which is remarkable.
And so it had the Notebook. It's actually I was going to show it to you, but boring. But it's a video about the Jeff Bezos, what's it called? Pi Zero. Have you seen this thing yet? Jeff Bezos backed it. So Pi Zero is basically giving robots brains that you can tell a robot what you want it to do. And the video shows like folding clothes and a lot of house chores, right? Household chores, cooking and folding clothes and cleaning up and doing things like that. But I mean, Bezos I think headed up a round of like $500 million in funding or something for this Pi Zero thing. But the video is a video of this robot doing its thing, and the audio in the background is an LM Notebook LM podcast, and there's a few commenters who have like one follower who are like, how dare you insult me with an AI generated podcast? Really? Are you serious right now?
I think a lot of people would be perfectly happy to listen to the Notebook LM podcasters.
Their voices are great.
I actually find that they have a very interesting dynamic.
I love it.
Right?
I love it.
I think that, here's what, a lot of audiences are perfectly happy with good enough.
Yeah.
Right. And I am constantly seeking to help escalate audiences to a point where they can see something extraordinary and really be moved by it. That's where I am as an artist. But as a professional designer and creative and strategist who advises on these topics and I spend a lot of time thinking about audience segmentation and demographics.
Yeah.
What do audiences want? Right.
Yeah.
And I could tell you that a lot of audiences are perfectly happy with good enough.
Yeah.
Now, there is an audience segment, there is a demographic that appreciates handcrafted. They appreciate and they want, and in this era of AI, they are going to seek out real human created art. Just kind of like in the independent film movement, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like people have an appreciation for smaller stories told more intimately in an intimate way. There's always going to be a place for real human handcrafted art. And by the way, that's probably in the marketplace going to escalate to a fairly expensive place where those people who want that are going to be willing to pay more to get.
Heck yeah.
Absolutely. That's not going to go out of existence. And here's the other thing I have to say. Mode Studios, since we started widely deploying AI, we haven't laid people off. We've hired more people. We have more designers working here now that we're 2 years into deploying AI in all kinds of places than we did before. So It seems to me that the evidence I have at hand isn't that it's eliminating jobs, it's changing jobs for sure.
Yeah.
With the advent of things like Follow Me and RoboSpots, we no longer have rigs full of stagehands in spot baskets. That job has changed because of technology, but it hasn't gone away. Moving lights didn't get rid of follow spots entirely.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Technology changes the way things are made. It changes the way that vocations happen and it changes what kind of careers are possible. But the fact of the matter is that right now in the marketplace, AI, we are searching for people with AI talents. We also want those people to be talented in using software like Unreal Engine or 3D software or other complementary tool sets that allow us to put all these pieces together and make great content.
But going back to this whole fear thing and, the common thing in our industry is just I don't want anything to do with this AI. It's coming for my job and it's going to take away my job. And, I used to, my go-to statement on that used to be, no, it's really not. It's going to provide you tools to make your job better and to make you more functional and more efficient. And so that at the sort of lowest level, that is what it's going to do. It's today, I had Kadena on the podcast and we talked about AI at one point and, he grabbed the tool that I had shared with him and went out and started using it to create JavaScript for him on some of the things that he was doing.
It's very good at creating code.
Correct. Yeah. So, that I think at the very lowest level, that's the stuff that it's going to do. It's going to help you. But when you look at these robots, both Elon's robot, this Pi Zero one, there's a Chinese one that I read about that's incredible and very close to launching right now. Yeah. And, these things are $20,000-$30,000 and they can be housekeepers. They can be, they can work in your shop doing tedious things. I'm sure at some point, they'll be able to work on lighting consoles or sound consoles or whatever it is. Because I used to say, the people who are always going to be safe no matter what are the plumbers and the people who do physical jobs.
Yeah.
I don't think that so much
No,
anymore. I think
I
that's
agree
coming.
with you. I think there will be a massive deployment of automation,
Yeah.
of robotics.
Yeah.
I think it is going to change things. I think before we see robots behind lighting desks, the first thing we're going to see is lighting desks deploying more AI functionality.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
how you approach a console to create effects, for instance,
Yeah.
or even light cues. Like, I know because I've been talking with people at various of the companies that are making lighting consoles.
Yeah, me too.
They're
Yeah.
already working on being able to have a prompting model for lighting.
Yeah.
Like, so rather than saying, oh, I want group 5 at 50 and group, 8 at 75 and group 10
Yeah.
at 100, and you're working towards making, a blue mysterious nighttime cue,
Yeah.
you're going to be able to prompt the console. You're going to be able to say, create a blue mysterious nighttime
Exactly.
cue focused mainly on stage right.
Speaking
And
in
the
English.
console's going
Yeah.
to be able to do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Look, there's going to be an impact. I think, we're going to see it. We're going to see AI deployed in a whole bunch of technological ways.
Yeah.
This is inevitable. And I mean, I think that I understand the people pushing back, and I understand the fear. Change is hard. Humans are not wired to be
Yeah.
constantly adapting. We crave finding cycles, finding rhythms of things we can do. We're going to plant the seeds, take care of the crops, harvest the seeds, make the food, put the, like we have certain things that are genetically coded in us and
Right.
behaviorally coded in us. And holy crap, we are in a hockey stick curve
Big time.
of
Yeah.
technological change. That's really uncomfortable,
Yeah.
right?
But at the same time, like, I'm so excited about it because of the control that it gives the humans. So, like, for example, I don't remember what it was, but last week there was something bothering me health-wise. I just turned 60, so there's always something bothering me. And, I would have normally gone to the doctor and said, here's what's happening, what should I do? Should I take a different vitamin? Should I do this? Like, what is it that's causing this problem? And instead, I used ChatGPT, and within 10, 15 minutes of prompting and going back and forth a little bit, I had the answers. And they were really good answers, and it worked, And so some people will say, you're a maniac. That's dangerous. How dare you trust your health to... What the hell do you think doctors have been doing for the last 20 years?
It's the same thing.
They go
listen
into
to
Google.
them. They either know things or they go to their bookshelf.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, judging by your symptoms,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that you have a violent case of herpes, Marcel.
No, but I mean, all we're dealing with, if we do it ourselves with ChatGPT, it's just a larger language model than what the doctor's been using.
Well, exactly.
It's not
And
like...
we just mentioned that they're really good at code. What AIs are really good is anything that's a question of deriving a result from aggregated information.
Correct.
They're super good at.
Yeah,
Right.
correct.
So the nature of jobs is going to change. Is the lighting programming job in danger? It's in danger of changing.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we might move ultimately, and I'm talking, probably maybe a decade out, we might be at a place where, a production designer is now sitting next to a director and prompting the media servers and prompting the light, just verbally talking to his interface.
Yeah.
And there aren't as many programmers involved.
Yeah.
I think that might happen.
Yeah. I think so too.
It's hard to know. It's hard to know where it's going. I can tell you that right now, it hasn't changed a whole lot.
No.
It is going to change things moving forward. It's even going to change them dramatically. We talked about at the beginning of the episode about how my daughter just went and got deep training in MA3.
Yeah.
Judging by the crawling pace of lighting console innovation.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
We might be we might
Well,
be
and
a
also
ways away, but
fear, our industry is small enough where it's relationship based and all of those things. I don't think anybody's going to want to be the first console that programs itself, because that's a scary thought, because you're going to be boycotted and canceled and all of those things when you're the first one coming out.
there is that. You have to get by that. resistance to really bring in
Because
change.
there will be
At the
resistance.
same time, there are going to be people who are super interested in that, and who are, even if they're not people working at, ETC or MA Lighting or stuff, there are people who are interested in. I've seen a product, I get assaulted with it all the time on my social feeds. Are these guys that have made a little box?
That was the one that got blasted at LDI last year.
Yeah, and I think they did get blasted. But you know what? That company is going gangbusters.
Yeah.
They are selling lots of those little boxes to little clubs.
Yeah.
And to
it makes
artists,
sense.
to DJs and to people playing in certain things who just want some basic, generative lighting to happen.
Coming.
That's on tempo and, moves with the thing. There is a marketplace for it.
So one other thing.
Stopping, trying to stop technical innovation from changing what we know is like going to the beach with a mop and trying to keep the waves. It's
You're right. No, you're right. There's no stopping this thing.
No.
Like you either get on the train or it runs over you.
And we've decided to get on the train, and I have had discussions with people who literally have come at me and said, "You're a vile. You are architecting the end of art."
Well, while that may be true, I happen to be with you on the AI thing.
Like circumstances beyond my control and time and the advance of technology. I've always been an artist interested in deploying technology since the very beginning.
Yeah.
Since the very beginning. I can't ignore this. I am curious. I want to understand this stuff. I want to understand how it works in the process.
Well,
I want to understand how
I remember how hard people fought against time code, how hard people fought against, programming cues and then running them in sequence and things like that. Like, advancements always tend to have people fighting on the other side, right? You run into resistance always. But one of the things I want to spend a few minutes talking about, because I know I don't have you all day, is this term prompt engineering. And so, I know that from my own experience, when you take the time to learn how to, and you can go out and Google, and there's 1,000 YouTube videos and probably 100,000 TikTok videos and stuff on how to do the best prompt engineering and all that stuff. But one of the things I've discovered recently, and I'm sure you're very aware of it, is Anthropic Claude writes prompts. So you can basically tell Claude to write a prompt for ChatGPT to do blah, 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 whatever it is, and you speak to it in English. It writes the prompt in Prompt World, and then you copy and paste it into ChatGPT. Yeah. And it works amazingly well.
And in fact, you should know that if you're using DALL-E 3, which is OpenAI's image generator, when you prompt DALL-E 3, it sends your prompt to ChatGPT for ChatGPT to rewrite it into a better prompt.
Oh, that's interesting.
Which then, this is all behind the curtain. Yeah. You don't see it. And then ChatGPT feeds the better prompt back to DALL-E 3.
Yeah.
And and I know some people who deploy this in a way. I use, the tools I use, like I'm a big Midjourney user. My workflow is I tend to make images in Midjourney, and then if I need to then move to video, I'll take anchor images that are like the look and the feel, the aesthetic and the composition I want. I make them in Midjourney, and then I go into Runway's Gen 3, which is a fantastic video creation tool. Yeah. And I will use an image prompt. I will use the picture I made in Midjourney. I will put it into Runway. I will add a little bit of detail, and then Runway makes a piece of video.
Yeah.
The thing about prompt engineering and using AI to help you prompt other AI is the models move really fast, right?
Yeah.
And how you prompt it, like for instance, in Midjourney version 4, you benefited from making really long prompts, right? Like the more description you gave it, the better. When Midjourney went to version 5, because of the way the model worked, it preferred you to be very direct. Like it wanted you to deliver like a couple of sentences, and then it filled in the gaps.
Yeah.
Version 6 works in a very different way, which is kind of structured more in a way of like, version 6 wants you to work in a very specific, like it wants you to start with style, tell it about subject, give it detail about settings, then information about composition, then information maybe about exterior forces like lighting,
Yeah.
and then add additional info like commands about aspect ratio and stuff like that.
Okay,
Now it has a format it wants you to
Yeah.
follow.
Yeah.
And if you feed it a chat GPT prompt into version 6 of Midjourney, your results might be hit or miss.
Yeah, you're going to
'cause
get crap.
Chat GPT has not caught up with the format that Midjourney prefers.
Yeah.
Right?
So when we're talking about prompt engineering, so like ChatGPT, if you go to it and you just say, write me a blog article about, the live events lighting industry, you're going to get shit, right? You're going to just get crap
You're
out
going
of
to need to do I do use ChatGPT to help me write things.
Yeah.
But usually I start with something like, if I, and then I'll feed it to ChatGPT to help me
That's me
maybe
too.
polish it.
Or vice versa. Or I'll
then
do it the
take
opposite way.
something out of ChatGPT and then I go back in and
That's
I
what I
polish
do.
it and
Yeah.
I,
Yeah, that's what I
my
do.
work with the large language models is very back and forth iterative.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you just say, give me a brilliant article, about the current state of the lighting industry,
Yeah.
you're going to get garbage.
Well, it's like I had people tell me that Grok, in the fun mode on Grok, it wrote a lot better things than ChatGPT, where you could actually copy and paste right out of Grok and use that article. I don't think so. Like Grok tries to use AI humor, and it's just so stupid. It's just like it's nonsensical, right? It just doesn't work. Doesn't work. It makes me throw up, not laugh. But yeah. So I mean, the thing about AI, I guess, in closing, is that I say to friends all the time, just start using it. Like find, if you want, like I tell people, and I'm telling people again here, and I'm sure you would do the same. If you come up to me at LDI or you send me an email or a text message and say, what are you using for spreadsheets? What are you using for writing articles? What are you using for images? What are you using for this or that? I'm happy to share that information with you.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, it's like people ask me, it's just you and Sarah doing the podcast. How does Sarah do so many posts? Like she's always posting YouTube shorts and Instagram reels. And does she not sleep? And the bottom line is she sleeps really well. She's probably sleeping right now while we're recording this. But we use AI apps to do some of those things. So like there's one called Opus Clips that we use pretty religiously, which takes a YouTube video of our podcast and it grabs like 20 or 30 clips out of it. And then you look at them and you find the best ones, but it's looking for things that might become viral, things that make a lot of sense, things that, it thinks people are going to relate to. And it works pretty well. And, so there's a lot of really logical, really good things that I use on a daily basis that I think people would benefit from, and at least get comfortable with it so that when it moves a little deeper into your world, you're not afraid of it.
That's my advice to people too, is it's like, look, if you're a professional technician, if you're a designer, if you're a creative director, a creative producer, you can make the global decision, do I want to use this stuff or not? And I honor that, whatever your choice is there.
Yeah.
But the fact is that this technology is coming. It's not coming. It's here. There's only going to be more of it. It's only going to be more pervasive.
Yeah.
You can, if you're interested in participating in this industry and being a professional in this industry, choose to learn about it and use it or not.
Yeah.
And again, I honor whatever decision you want to make. I've always had the predisposition to want to figure out how to use new technology in what I do.
Yeah.
I was one of the first people that figured out media servers and using media servers. I've been along for the ride in terms of moving lights coming into the picture and then the advent of LED and now this diversity of fixture types that do all these kind of different things. I've always been an artist that wanted to incorporate technology into my design. So I'm curious about AI.
Yeah.
And since the beginning, and as you heard in the podcast, we've been deploying it really since 2010.
That's crazy. Yeah, I didn't know
Right?
that. That's
So-
such a cool
so-
story.
So I'm not slamming the brakes.
Yeah.
I'm keeping up with it. I spend a lot of time educating myself on it. We've certainly been able to do things we've never been able to do. As a creative agency, we've been able to swing way above our weight because
Yeah.
we've been using AI to help us put together creative pitches, to help us put strategy stuff together, to give our work underpinnings that are stronger. We've been able to compete with agencies with way bigger resources than
Yeah.
ours
Yeah.
because we have
That
that.
makes so
and
much
it's been a
sense.
blessing to us as a
Yeah.
small business.
It's your
small
superpower.
business.
It's your
Yeah, so-
superpower.
I'm interested in it. I'm curious about it. My feeling on it is if I'm talking to people that are new or just coming into the business, learn about it. You can choose
Absolutely.
whether or not you want to use it,
Yeah.
but learn about it, learn how it is used, learn how you can deploy it, learn how you can deploy it to sell yourself, sell your work, improve your work,
Yeah.
be more nimble, save time, right? Save money.
Well, there's a part of
Um,
your job that you hate doing. And there's a really good chance that there's AI tools already in place that will enable you to do less of that,
Yes.
whatever that is.
Yeah.
So, that's the bottom line for me is AI. Like when I saw the clothes folding thing from Bezos yesterday, I was like, oh, really? It can fold your clothes for you. I want one of those,
Right.
That's perfect. So are you doing anything at LDI as far as are you doing any speeches or talks or anything on AI stuff?
I will be talking on the 10th,
Okay.
along with some of my friends from Tate
Okay.
about placemaking. We're going to have a panel that's part of the DSE part of LDI,
Okay.
the digital signage people.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about interactivity and technology used in creating immersive experiences for permanent installation. So I'll be talking about that. I'm also apparently one of the judges for Battle of the Busk.
Oh, fun.
So
Yeah, I love
I will
that.
be there as well. And
Yeah.
then I'll be walking the floor and
So there's
doing
no
really cool
AI.
stuff.
There's no AI talks or anything. That surprises me. I
think
thought they'd do something.
I think there is the X Live part of LDI.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Where I think they are having Jake Pinholster
Okay.
is leading that this time around, and I think that Jake does have several panels about AI and
Oh,
how
cool.
AI is being used.
Cool.
I'm not talking about it this year. I was too busy this year to
Yeah.
commit to
Yeah.
doing a lot of stuff at LDI.
Yeah.
But I will certainly be there. I will be
Cool.
talking on the 10th, and I'll be around and about if anybody wants to talk to me one-on-one. So
Yeah. Buy him a beer at the Circle Bar, and he'll tell you whatever you want to know about AI.
I don't know, having been clean and sober
Oh,
for
well, don't buy him a
having
beer.
been
Buy him a
12 years
coffee.
Now I don't know that I'll share the beer, but
Yeah.
you can get me a fizzy water with a slice of lime.
There
and
you
I'll-
go. There you go. Well, that's probably about $27 at the Circle Bar. So
Yes, they probably.
that's a nice fee. All right, Bob. Thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate all your time. You're certainly very, very up on this, and I'd actually love to buy you that soda water with a lime and have a deeper talk because I'm not a technical guy, but I'm really an AI guy. I love the tools that it's providing me, so I play with them every day. Thanks, Bob.
Fantastic.